you by Consejo Mexicano del Cannabis. It is.
It is.
So let's do it. Let's do this. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another featured presentation of Cannabis Mexico Summit. On behalf of the CMS team and Consejo Mexicano del Cannabis, we thank you for being here to help us add a lot of value to Mexico cannabis business and the ecosystem around it. I'm Israel Madrid, and I'll be your host for the next hour, so thank you. We're halfway through the second day of the summit, and we have had some remarkable keynotes. Today, we have a great guest to talk about one of the main keystones of the cannabis industry, the importance of quality control in raw materials, derivatives, and finished products. Let me welcome to you my friend, Antonio Hierro. Hi, Antonio.
Hey, Israel. How are you, man?
Very good, very good. Let me tell you a little bit about Antonio. Antonio is the CEO of steephill Mexico, which is the first steephill international location. He has more than 15 years of business management and operations experience in hospitality and entertainment in industry in LA and Vegas, and key venues such as the renowned Mondorian Hotel and the Light Group. In 2013, he became the founder and CEO of MA Associates, overseeing the expansion of the cannabis testing division. After overseeing the sale of MA Associates to a publicly traded company, he decided to further his interest in the cannabis testing with steephill Mexico. He's also vice president at Consejo Mexicano del Cáñamo, an active investor in the cannabis sector through Indie Capital, and he also serves as the vice president of certification for Concanaco. So Tony, a lot of achievements. Let's go right through to our first question. What do you think?
Let's do it, Israel. Happy Friday, buddy. Let's get this ball rolling.
All right, good. So what do you think are the stages of production in which the lack of quality has the greatest impact on the final result of the product?
The area of concern is always starting off with the flower. This always comes from the ground. You need to make sure that your raw goods and your soil is in the best conditions possible. It doesn't start well from the ground. You can do everything right. However, you could have heavy metals, you could have a range of mycotoxins and pesticides in your product.
I was muted.
You're muted. All right. Thank you.
It always happens. Something happens. So that's the first question. We're going to right through the next one. What's the importance of quality of the cannabis product? I think this is really just a way to say that we do a really important job here, right?
I think this is kind of self-explanatory.
Exactly. I don't know.
The importance of I think the importance of quality of the cannabis product in this industry, it's in a range not only for educational purposes, for the legislators as we're starting to get into this legalization process. However, it's also extremely important for the end user. I believe every end user should have the right as to what they are consuming and what they're using. If you go to a lot of the gray markets today in the world of cannabis, and if you go to your local guy down the street, you really don't know what you're purchasing, and you really don't want to have medication do more harm to you than good.
Yeah. Well, we as a consumer must expect the same quality as any other good that is regulated here in Mexico, right? Or in place in the world.
Exactly.
You wouldn't get a...
Even if you go to the store, it says, the nutritional fact sheets of what you're consuming. I believe if you're going to be consuming, whether it be even a recreational product or a medicinal product, you should have the right as to know where this product came from and how it was grown and what's in it.
Wow, yeah, it's a most important fit. A key part of our industry is guaranteeing quality products for final users, for medical users, and I think we're gonna talk a little bit more about it with Tony, what he's doing with steephill Mexico. But let's go to the next question. The next question is, what are the direct consequences of the lack of product quality? For example, in the price, is there
the direct consequences of the lack of product quality and quality control, not just the price, but it has this domino effect that kind of goes back to the legislators as well, saying, hey, we told you this wasn't safe. because you also have to look at this from a lot of the baby boomers' perspective.
Right.
They come from the era of war on drugs, just say no, dare to keep your kids off of drugs. If there's no product quality and there's no quality control, we kind of feed into that. The idea is to, when you add the product quality, you add the education. You add the education, you add, you have knowledge as to how to legalize and how to direct the future of this industry.
Well, yeah. Actually, the price is really dependent on quality, and we have to go through a lot of hoops to get a really good product, and that will impact the price at the end, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to buy something, with low quality or no quality, the price is going to be low. But if you want to buy something that's going to be recognized on a legal stage in a legal area, you're going to pay for it. However,
Yeah,
you also have a lot of security into what you are purchasing.
We have talked with a lot of people that are more in the liberal part of legalization, that they want to get a little bit more less restrictions and less quality restrictions. And we're always saying things to them like, would you smoke a cigarette, a tobacco cigarette that is not in a box, or it's just sold around the corner? It's quality should go through all the hoops, all the processes.
Absolutely. I think there's going to be quality control across the board. I mean, if you want something in less quality, or if you want something in abundance, I mean, we can compare this to the alcohol industry. Some tequilas or some mezcales are more expensive than others because there's a lot more quality control processes throughout its stage of production. If you want something on the medicinal side, we need to really make sure that this has quality. This has it's been gone through all the protocols of what it needs to go through, from the pesticides to salmonella to potency. There's a range of things that need to be accomplished so it can be a safe medication.
Yeah, well, perfect. Let's go to the next one. The next one is what happens to the products, discarded due to lack of quality? What happens to it?
The product is destroyed. It can no longer, it needs to be destroyed. It cannot be circulating throughout the black market. It needs to be destroyed, because if it falls into the wrong hands and somebody has an adverse effect to it, it could be detrimental to the industry as a whole.
All right, perfect. Yeah, basically it has to be destroyed. There's no other way we can go.
It has to be destroyed, guys. It has to be destroyed, and that should be coming from the oversight of the legislators. There should be laws saying that this product needs to be destroyed, because if not, it falls into the wrong hands.
Exactly, and that's a great risk. Like having product that goes into the wrong hands and goes into the black market, or goes to another country with less regulation.
Yeah, exactly.
There have been histories about that. So it has to be destroyed, friends. The next one is, how can I implement this quality standard in practice, and what are they, or how do they will work? Do you have a how it's gonna work? Do I have a product where it's gonna be?
That, on a federal legal standpoint, I think it needs to be tested. So if you're gonna be a grower, in the form that you're gonna sell that product, that raw good, to the pharmaceutical companies or to a manufacturer, it needs to be tested, whether it be the oil, whether it be the isolate, whether it be the flour. It should be tested in the form that it's going to be sold. And when it gets to becoming the final product, the end user, that product should be tested to make sure that the raw goods have not been manipulated in any way or shape or form. I think that keeps a very good quality control standard across the board. And when it's been tested, it should come with a QR code, so that the end user can actually scan it, and it should say, hey, it's been going through these hands and it ended here. And it kind of gives transparency in the industry as well.
Yeah, traceability, right?
Traceability, exactly.
What is your view of implementing the traceability in this market?
I think it should start with a very robust regulation, and make sure that we're defining the rules of the game that are black and white. So we avoid these sort of pitfalls that have happened in other countries. Uruguay is a perfect example, where they have a ton of product. However, it's filled with pesticides. They can't really sell it, and it kind of circulates through the black market. I think if Mexico, if we do this correctly, and you put in, you know, rules to this game, you know, with good regulation, we avoid these pitfalls that have happened in the past. You implement these quality control standards by starting at the top, and it kind of works its way down.
Right. So we're gonna need a lot of testing facilities, right?
Absolutely. I think there should be, I think they are critical in many markets. I mean, they're the ones that legitimize the marketplace, such as Colorado, Nevada, California. You know, these quality control standards is what helps drive these legal markets.
For example, I want to start talking about a little bit more personal here instead of getting into the next question. Would you tell us a little bit about the experience or your experience in with steephill in Nevada, all the work you're doing there, you're doing in the United States for implementing testing labs and the importance about it and the importance for the market?
Absolutely. I mean, when we were in Las Vegas, we were really discussing about how we were going to roll this out. We were in some pretty unfortunate scene, financial terms, given the 2009 crisis, real estate crisis. And some of the things that Nevada was trying to look, we were looking for other opportunities of revenue. And one of the main things that we were really focused on is, after doing a lot of research on this plant, it's very volatile. It's very, very kind of ups and down. We're having a hard time coming up with a standardization process as you would have in the pharmaceutical industry. And one of the biggest concerns was that we were really trying to figure out, how do you protect your people? And our people is not just so much the citizens of Las Vegas, but we were looking at trying to protect our tourism as well. And Las Vegas and Nevada in general, it's very liberal. We have a lot of things legalized there. However, when we get to a new thing, a new item that we wanted to legalize, such as cannabis, we were really kind of focusing on with steephill on how to protect the public. We really wanted to make sure that we had the right knowledge, giving the legislators the right information so they can roll out a law that protects our public. It generates revenue for our city, and it also kind of gives the industry some sort of legitimacy going into it. I think knowledge is power, just like we learned in school kind of growing up. What we're trying to do in Mexico is the same thing. We're trying to give the legislators the knowledge they need to produce an industry that can be lucrative across the board. I have many friends in this industry, just like yourself, Israel, and other people that want to get involved in different parts of this industry, whether it be growing, whether it be manufacturing, whether it be end good users, dispensaries. However, I think this all starts with education. This all comes from science as well. This plant, we're still kind of in our infancy stages of this plant in the study. We're making great progress. And I think with science and everything else and knowledge, it'll get everybody more comfortable with the idea and what this new industry can bring for us.
Great. Well, let me just welcome all the late participants. Maria is here. There's a lot of people that have entering in the past 5 minutes. So I just want to just do a recap of what we've been talking about. We're talking with Antonio del Hierro. Antonio is the CEO of steephill Mexico. We've been talking about regulation, testing labs, and all things going into this quality market that is needed to have here in Mexico and the United States. Thank you, Antonio. I always wondered, how did you, well, first of all, steephill in the United States is one of the brightest starts in the testing labs in the States, right? They have a lot of things. They have a big database of molecules. Could you tell us a little bit more about steephill US? So
yes,
then we can talk about
steephill USA, I met them in 2012. And when I first met them, they were in the Oakland facilities before they transferred over to the Berkeley and the beautiful facility they have now. However, I also believe they were really, really ahead of the curve. When these markets were starting to come on, there was a lack of knowledge. And when steephill was getting involved, they were really focused on the R&D of the plant. They were focused on quality control. They were focused on all the things that a lot of us probably weren't thinking about, and it became a pivotal piece in the legalization market. What Steep Hill has been able to do throughout the technology as the years progress and the R&D that they do there, Dr. Donald Land is who I consider one of the mentors over there on how this should be rolled out. Ariel Chu, she may be listening in on this conversation too. She's the head of licensing for Steep Hill. And what they really were trying to accomplish was to give education. It was really trying to give people an idea as to what they're consuming and what they think that could help. And, they've really made huge strides into making a very illegitimate market legitimate. I think without, I've stolen this phrase from a couple of people saying, if you want cannabis, you need science. And without science, it just stays like marijuana or a joint.
Yeah. So that's where I was going. We have been talking a lot about in the past few years that science, it has to be one of the main participants on the market, especially when we're opening a new one, just like Mexico. So I want to connect that thought of what Steep Hill is doing in the United States. So with your idea of what is going on here in Mexico and what are you trying to do with this ecosystem that you're building around Steep Hill in Mexico?
So basically we're kind of, we're really trying to educate people, especially on the legislative side and you have the chambers of commerce, you have all these different moving parts in Mexico. In the United States, since it's not federally legal, you have to adapt to those state regulations or those state needs. Here in Mexico, we need to adapt to the federal needs and the consequences that left us with COVID-19 and in the direction that the country is going. I believe with science and with knowledge and with the right information, everybody across the board in this industry is going to prosper. Everybody from the end user to the growers, to the genetics departments, to the pharmaceutical companies. This will be a phenomenal stepping stone for Mexico. And Steep Hill just wants to make sure that, just like other testing labs that will be coming into this industry, to make sure that the product and the uses of this product are being used responsibly across the board.
Perfect. So let's jump to the other question. We went a little bit personal and then we'll go back there, don't worry. So the other question is it expensive to have harvesting system for my crops?
I think there's going to be different systems for different places. It could be really, really high end. It could go up to $250,000 for a module sort of building, right? Where it has all these temperature controls. I think it really depends on where you're located. I think that because you're going to have different needs, for example, in Sinaloa, and you're going to have different needs for something like in Merida, or if you go up to Tamaulipas where it's extremely humid. I think there's just, I think there's different factors that you can, you need to adapt to given your geographical location of the country. Is it expensive? It can be. It can be very expensive. It really depends on what your needs are. And
so sometimes just going all for the technology is not that efficient.
It really depends. I mean, you can go to these very remote areas, and if you have all this technology, but if you don't have an ability to power it, we go back to square one. It doesn't. That investment was not utilized correctly there. Like I said, it could be really expensive. It could be something very economical. It really just depends on your location.
But what do you think about procedures for harvesting and implementing them in communities that are far away?
The harvesting of the crops is going to be critical to your testing results, because if you did everything right, but if you left too much humidity in your rooms or in your drying rooms, that comes with other problems in your microbiology testing. You don't want all of a sudden for plagas that could start getting cultivated in your humidity areas, and all of a sudden you did everything right, and if you didn't harvest it right, all of a sudden you fail and you lose your batch. That would be really unfortunate.
So it can go expensive.
It can be a very expensive lesson to learn if you don't do this right.
But exactly, it's most important just to do it right than go expensive. You don't have to throw a lot of money, just do it right.
And absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I have another question in here. in the harvesting process, in the process of producing the flower and all the first stages of harvesting cannabis, where do you think the testing part would enter? If do
The
you
testing part
recommend?
the testing part would actually enter in the stage that you plan on selling that to the end user or selling it to the manufacturer. That's where the testing kind of kicks in. The idea behind the testing, though, is not so much also for the end users or the pharmaceuticals. It's also for these quality control standards meet a certain level. So, you know, we get that stigma out of the whole Mexican market as well. So you're able to export this out to other countries that only allow importation. It gives that sort of legitimacy back to the market, like I was previously saying.
So in your experience, when it, for example, in the United States, when it jumps every part of the process, you have to go through testing. For
It
example,
really
if you,
depends.
it depends.
In the United States, it really depends on the state-by-state regulations.
All right.
So that they're not a federal, you know, sort of framework for this. In most states, that you have to test for is product that you're selling, whether it be the oil, whether it be the flour, whether it be the isolate. So that part would be tested, and it's normally defined by batches. You go to Nevada, it's every 2.5 kilos has to go through a testing sort of requirement. If it goes through another state, it varies by state by state. The idea here in Mexico is to come up with some federal guidelines that will meet some of the international quality control standards, so we can be able to export the product out. And obviously, the growers and the manufacturers will have great margins on that as well.
Perfect. We'll go to the next one. Does the lack of product quality impact the social stigma attached to the industry? I think we talked about it, but let's go through it again.
Yeah, 1000%. If you have the lack of quality, it goes back to that, you know, this is a drug, this is not good for you. This goes back to, this is no longer a medication. This is no longer, it goes back to that sort of 1990s, 1980s sort of war on drugs stigma. The idea is with the quality control testing and the standardizations of these products is to give people the education they need to make it an educational answer, to have a solution to some of the stigma and some of the issues that we've had in the past with these plants.
Well, sometimes we think that maybe the cannabis industry is not going to evolve and then just like alcohol, for example, right? When the user can choose between drinking a really cheap, low quality alcohol because it's cheap, like, I don't know, Tonai or whatever, and you can just have top shelf in your bar, you know. Absolutely. I think it's going to be like that, right?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, we want to compare the recreational stuff to alcohol. You know, let's compare that to alcohol, and there's going to be, you know, different sort of grades of quality in that recreational use. However, if we're going to compare this to the medicinal use, it needs to be held to a pharma sort of standards. It needs to be held to this GMP sort of standards, because at the end of the day, you don't want to take a medication that's going to do more harm to you than good. Oh, great. I mean, it helped your arthritis, but now you have ulcers or something due to heavy metals. I mean, it doesn't really, it's not gonna help us. Or if you take a low quality medication, all of a sudden it gives you salmonella instead of, you know, whatever the case may be. The idea is to make sure that there's some sort of standardization and minimums and maximums in both segments, whether it be recreational or medicinal.
Yeah, in medicinal, it's really important just to the quality control assessment has to be really practical and applicable in any part of the process.
And transparent.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. How do you think this transparency would work or should work?
I think the transparency should be worked as in the end user should have a right as to who tested it, who grew it, what kind of standards did the growers use? You know, what kind of safety practices do they have? Do they have their ISO accreditations? Are they meeting all the regulations that are currently in place? And they should have access to that grower's information as well, you know, and they should have access to what the testing certification is stating as well. I think that gives the end user sort of transparency. It gives them education as well to the end user. it also gives education back to the future legislators of this country. Like, hey, this is how this is kind of working. This is how it's kind of, and it gives everybody across the board transparency, security in the process as well. And it kind of loosens up that stigma a little bit.
Right. Good. Well, let's jump to the other one. There's not anymore. So I have a lot of questions. We've been talking about it. In the past few days in the summit, we have been talking a lot about COAs, like what are COA. Sometimes people don't know what is a COA, who is going to issue it, why is it important? Can you tell us a little bit more about COAs from you?
So the COAs come from quality control labs. Yeah. And however, the quality control labs do not participate in any other area of the industry. We do not participate in the making of products. We don't participate in the growing of the raw goods. We don't participate in the manufacturing. All we do is that we want to make sure that, so there's not any conflicts of interest. We want to make sure that whomever is manufacturing or growing this medicine or for adult use, it's the product that's being utilized or the raw goods that are being utilized have met the quality control standards of no pesticides, no heavy metals, no mycotoxins, no residual solvents. And that's basically what we want to do. And steephill is one of the pioneers in this industry for the quality control side. However, there are going to be some other labs that come in this play too. However, I think that what gives a competitive advantage to steephill is that it has been doing this since 2008. It has, relative data to compare the different strains that are entering the market and the different hybrids that are coming into the market.
That's really important. The relative part of the relative data that you have in that database and that you can assess to for every strain that it's going to be shown up in this market, right?
Absolutely. And I think with a market like Mexico, it's going to be the largest federal legal market in the world. There's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of new hybrids that will be emerging from this market. And the good thing about with steephill, we can always compare and contrast what we've seen in the past and where and how we can see it moving forward.
Right. Well, so COAs, you hear it, guys. COAs are quintessential for our industry. They're like the birth act, but the birth certificate of your product, and it's used all the way through the marketing part or the import and export side, right?
Exactly. I mean, it kind of gives you that quality control stamp. Like, hey, I've met all the quality standards that it's been, and it kind of gives you, it'll give your product value, and value turns into something monetary.
Yeah, that's the other side of the question we had a little bit earlier, right? That if lack of quality, it brings the price of your product down. Being tested by a good lab brings the price of your product up.
Exactly. Exactly. But it also, even if you're going to have a lower end product, that's fine too, but make sure that it meets some of the quality control standards, because at the end of the day, anybody that's going to consume this should have the right to know where it's coming from. Not everybody's going to grow top shelf. Not everyone's going to, you're going to have other people that are going to be growing more economical product in the supply chain. And that's okay too. We want to make sure that a person down here on the lower reef that has the lower income, they have a right too to know what they're consuming as well.
So Tony, we're still waiting for like the minuses of the regulation here in Mexico, for the medical regulation, all the norms, all the hoops that we're gonna go through for selling it. And steephill Mexico, is it ready now? Are we ready for helping people by starting their product?
steephill Mexico will be ready to receive product hopefully within the next 10 to 12 weeks. We finished out building in our lab. We're in the process of acquiring the equipment needed. However, if anyone needs any consulting, anybody needs some advice, or somebody wants to know how this is going to work more than whatever they need, I mean, our door is always open. We have an open door policy here in Mexico City. We're easy to be located. We're pretty central. So anything that anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or come by the office.
Right, nice. Well, Hill, Mexico, as you heard from Tony del Hierro, where they're starting their lab here in Mexico. There soon it's gonna be open. It's open doors, so you can send him a message or whatever you need for any questions about testing. They will be ready soon. On the other hand, Tony, you're part of the Cannabis Mexico Council. How
Yes.
has been your journey in El Consejo?
The Consejo, it's been a journey, it's been an adventure. You know, my business partner and I, Pedro Garcia, we came up with this idea to start this Consejo to give knowledge, to give good social awareness to this. You know, much as has a lot of our other colleagues. I think a lot of these consejos have the basics. Sort of we all have things in common. However, we were just coming from it from a different from consequences that's happened in other markets, and we're just looking for best use practices, best quality control standards. We're looking to bring knowledge and information to the general public as to what this industry can do and what it could become if all the steps to serve the quality control standards are implemented correctly.
Right. So that's part of the Consejo. You're vice president. What are you looking forward for Consejo? And what are you looking forward for your role in this market?
I mean, in my role in this market, and within the Consejo is that continual education, that continual development of this market. As we know, Israel, you're part of this Consejo as well, and it's a never-ending learning curve. It's always developing, it's always something new, it's always something that. And I think what we want to do with the Consejo, and what we really want to do with this Consejo, is to continue giving that continual education. Like for example, with the vape pens, I think it was about a year ago now, or a couple of years ago, where the vitamin E all of a sudden destroying people's lungs.
Yeah.
These are the type of things I think we want to continue developing with the Consejo, with more knowledge, and as the industry starts to mature and grow, this is when the Consejo matures and grows as well. And with the knowledge that it has with steephill as one of its alliances that we have with the Consejo, it'll give us an idea as to where this market's going and how is it contributing to who are what the public are consuming as well.
Well, good, perfect. I think we guys have been doing a great job just transferring science and knowledge to the Mexican people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Israel, you've been a pillar in this community with us as well. You started with us from the beginning. I have Maria Vojanovich. She's another person that has been a key factor of communication of this. You also need to put this into a language that everybody can understand. You look at some of this stuff in the sciences and cannabinoids and this and that. A lot of people can't even get THC right yet, or CBD. Yeah. There's a lot of misconceptions about this. And I think that the Consejo, along with a lot of other sort of councils in this country, have done a good job at start bringing this education and bringing that sort of, let's bring this to a language that everyone's going to understand. And it's going to start, once you understand something, that means you're learning something. If you're learning something, it starts eliminating the stigma with it as well.
Great, Tony. I just, I know it's, this was a presentation for the quality control, but I wanted to go a little bit further for all the things you're doing here in Mexico, because I think you've been doing a great job, not because just you're my friend, and we have been doing a lot of work together, but you have been building an ecosystem that is quite remarkable for what we're doing here in Mexico. We are basing it in science, because it was your main goal, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, not just our Consejo too. I think Lorena Beltran has done a good job promoting this, and the benefits of this plant. Memo Nieto is another good friend of ours as well. He's done a great job in promoting and the social awareness of this as well. We bring a different sort of angle to the effect of checks and balances to this. I think everybody has been a phenomenal contributor to getting this legal in Mexico and starting a new industry and start getting rid of some of the stigma that it's caused for generations in Mexico.
Good. So you're also an entrepreneur. Well, you're an entrepreneur. You have brought steephill to Mexico. You are part of the Consejo Mexicano del Cannabis. You're vice president of Concanaco. You have done a lot of work here in Mexico for this community, for this market. What is next for Tony? Where are you going?
So next for me, well, let's get this lab open first.
Or you're still, let's finish this until we talk about the next one.
We're looking to expand within the country. We're really looking to expand here in Mexico City. I think the next big location will be in Guadalajara in the coming year. I think Guadalajara is going to be a huge point of grow and manufacturing of this plant. A good central location there. And we're looking to see if we can take, beyond borders. We're looking at Spain as an opportunity as well. We'll see what happens. But for right now, we're really focused on developing Mexico and making sure that we can provide the needs of what the country is going to be facilitated in the coming years, months, and hopefully sooner rather than later.
Good. Perfect. So you heard it here. Thank you very much, Tony. We talk about the whole industry, what we're doing in cannabis industry here in Mexico. We talk about steephill, we talk about quality control, we talk about COAS, we talk about the Mexican Council, Cannabis Council, and what's next for everything you guys are doing here in Mexico. So I congratulate you. Thank you very, very much, friend. Do you have anything to add?
No, it's always a pleasure, Israel. It's always great to have some one-on-one time with you and the rest of this industry as well. Everyone's kind of doing their part to make this work, and as we are as well. I look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. This was the live talk with Antonio del Hierro, CEO of steephill Mexico. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Tony.
Once again,
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias a todos.
Hasta luego.
Bye.